All right, welcome to another episode of the Fair Chase podcast. We're continuing our series and getting right for deer season, which has been fun, and it's some of it's basic stuff, some of it's more in depth, but it's great. It's kind of helpful for us, Jared and I and Joe here, as we just kind of think through getting ready for deer season. So last week we had talked about getting your archery gear right. This week we wanted to get kind of more specific about archery gear. That's obviously, I mean, there's all types of deer hunting you can do, but a lot of it's archery season. And for us, it's like most of the deer hunting we do is with the bow. So this week, let me dial it back. Last week, Dave here and I met for the first time. Didn't know each other really. We'd been texting for a while, and got to talking. And Dave is a broadhead. I guess you could say you're kind of an expert at this point. Why don't you introduce yourself and then we'll kind of jump into things.
Yeah, so Dave Buikema, co-owner of Razor Broadheads. My buddy's name is Shane, and we both own it together, and we're going to our second full season this year. So I guess expert is in the eye of the beholder. So we'll see. We'll let people make their own decision at the end of this interview, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, you spend a lot of time with broadheads. We'll say that, which may or may not make you an expert. So, like I said, last week we talked a lot about archery stuff, but now it's like, all right, one really important part of archery bow hunting is the tip that you have on your arrow. And so we get a lot of questions about what we use or what we like and what you should do and what's a single bevel, all these crazy things that are just all encompassing. So we thought we'll do a quick podcast here to cover some of these things. So Dave, if you don't mind, I'm just going to jump right in and feel free to, take this conversation where you think it should go. You talk to people about this more than I do. So I'm just going to jump right in. So Dave, like when we're talking broadheads, people obviously who hunt or maybe not, they have a certain image of what a broadhead is in mind. What is a broadhead? What are the different types? Tell me a little bit about what that is.
Well, when it comes to hunting, I mean, the broadhead obviously is the thing that does the killing, right? I love different bow manufacturers. I love all kinds of different arrows, but to me, you got to get that broadhead part right because that's ultimately the part that is going to do the killing. Yeah, you got to hit your spot, of course, right? But it's a very important decision. Is there an end all be all when it comes to broadheads? I really don't believe that there is. I think it depends on the situation. Do I think razors obviously have some advantages over others? Of course, or else I won't be doing this. But essentially, your options come down to fixed, cut on contact, or mechanical, right? So ones that basically you can screw on the night before the season and pretty confident they're going to shoot the same way as what your field tips did the day before. So those are your mechanicals. I bet everybody listening to this has probably shot those, including myself. And then when it comes to fixed, you have your single bevel, which is what a razor is, and then a double bevel. And really the only difference between those is a single bevel is actually going to twist as it goes through the animal.
Why does it twist? What's the bevel? How does that work?
Yep. So you saw these last week, Josh, but essentially it's only beveled on one side versus both. So when it comes to that edge, when it goes through a medium, it just naturally twists and it actually creates a deeper wound channel while it's twisting. Yeah. But the other thing is it's actually penetration. It's easier to twist through a given medium than it is to push. So while it's twisting, whether it be flesh, obviously, but in particularly bone, it's going to have a greater likelihood of going through it.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Fair Chase podcast. We're going to take a few seconds here to thank a few sponsors that help to make this show possible.
We are big fans of having glass with you when you're in the woods. So whether we're turkey hunting, bear hunting, deer hunting, whatever we're doing, we're bringing some sort of glass. Actually, one of the new fun pieces of glass that we've added to our collection were the UHD 18 by 56s.
Big boys.
I like them because then you don't need to bring a full spotter, and you can still do pretty well. Yeah. I like the 2 eyes. So we love Vortex. We use a lot of their optics on our rifles, on our chest when we're out.
Rangefinders. They got
rangefinders. Amazing. So we'll love them. Go check them out. And actually, if you're going to buy some, check out Midway USA and use the promo code TFC10 for 10% off your order. I promise you won't be disappointed. Go check them out, Vortex Optics.
HuntWise is an awesome app. There's a lot of them out there. This one's definitely our favorite. They're local here in Grand Rapids, have their headquarters here. They have an awesome HuntCast 2.0 that's going to give you weather prediction, wind prediction, anything based off the pin and property that you're hunting to give you the best day to get out there and hunt. So it's kind of a no-brainer. Go get this app, huntwise.com.
We've shot a lot of bows, but for the past 5 or so years, we've been shooting prime bows. Love the way they shoot, super stable. And what we're really excited about, great warranty. And this year they rolled out the RevX series, which is pretty sweet. We've been talking about the different RevXs we're going to be shooting.
And you're going in the 6Y?
I'm deciding to shoot the 36, which is a
the
longer
only
axis,
reason he's choosing the 36
is because I figure the bigger the bow, the bigger the buck. So we're going to test that out. Follow us this year to see if that actually happens. But that's what I'm shooting. You're shooting the RevX 4. Yep. So anyways, we love Prime. Michigan company. Great guys. Go check them out. G5prime.com. We put a lot of miles on whether we're
our boots.
Yeah, on our boots. Whether it's Alaska out west, even here in Michigan.
Let's just say the muck boots were left in the truck.
Yes. So we need something that's comfortable, that'll keep us dry, that's durable, and actually we like a little stiffer soled when we're hunting from our platform when we're saddle hunting. So we wear Lathrop & Son boots. I've been wearing the Mountain Hunter Encompass, and yours is the
Mountain Hunter Elite.
Great boots. Great guys from down in Illinois, the Lathrop brothers. Had them on an episode in the past. Go check it out. Go check out their boots, Lathrop & Sons.
If you didn't already know that James and I are saddle hunters, then you do now. And if you don't like it, then go listen to somebody else because we're going to talk about saddles. We wear Trophy Line tree saddles because we think they're awesome. And they come out with some awesome new products all the time. They just came out with a new Venatic saddle that is seriously the best saddle I've ever sat in. And I've sat in quite a bit of them. They also have the new Onyx platform out.
I spent some time on it this fall.
I've spent some time on it. It's pretty sweet. And they're going to continue to come out with sweet products just like those two. So stay tuned to them. They've got social media, trophyline.com. And save yourself 10%. TFC 10.
It's no use having an awesome bow if you don't have great accessories. So sights, stabilizers, things like that. And so that's why we chose to work with Redline Bow Accessories. And so those guys are coming out with amazing new things, whether it be new stabilizers or sights like this. If you're watching on our YouTube or video podcast, this new torch sight. So we're huge fans of this sight. Double pin. You know what? Go check out our past episode with them or check out their website. There's a ton to like about this site. Their stabilizers are great, and actually some of their quivers are incredible.
Yes.
So go check them out. Listen to the last episode we did with them. Oh, and save yourself 10% with the code TFC10.
Yeah, I love that. And, just to even rewind, the difference between something like archery and rifle hunting, for example, is the way that you ultimately kind of kill what you're trying to kill, because a rifle a lot of it is just contact, right? It's like a blunt force kill. And like sometimes you'll shoot a deer with certain calibers and like literally the force of the bullet will just kill them right there. Archery, on the other hand, is different. Archery is you're opening a deer up with almost like a scalpel, right? And you're slicing something to make it bleed, and it's a death by bleeding. Am I getting that right?
Yeah, I mean, I guess you're trying to create as much trauma as possible.
Yeah, and so you're right. I mean, there's fixed, there's expandables. I've shot both. On going into this year, I think I'm probably leaning towards fixed to try this year. But again, I've like for years I've loved the expandables. So they all have benefits, they all have drawbacks. But prior to even getting into that, Dave, like, what are some mistakes people make when they're picking broadheads, or, what are like some misconceptions they might have when it comes to like selecting what to put on the tip of their arrow?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, price is a concern for everybody, of course, right? You got to take that into account. What game you're going after, what distance that your shot's typically going to be for. What experiences have you had in the past with a particular broadhead you're using, right? Have you had mechanical failures? Have you hit shoulders and not penetrated and lost deer? I mean, there's so many things you can take into account. And that's why I say there's no broadhead that's going to be perfect for everybody in every given scenario. It's all going to be independent of, again, the species, the terrain, and your history with particular heads you've shot.
Yeah. Is there a huge difference when it comes? One thing I hear a lot is like, oh, fixed heads, like when there's wind, you're going to be way more affected by wind as opposed to a mechanical, which is, is, if anybody knows, it's basically almost like like it's almost like nothing. It goes into the animal, and it basically activates these blades that pop out. And so one thing people say is like, well, wind is a factor. When it's really windy, it's best to use a mechanical. Is that accurate?
So I would to say that to a degree that a fixed blade broadhead is going to be more affected by wind than a mechanical. I would agree with that because there's more surface area there.
Right.
I mean, it's open the whole time, right? It doesn't have to deploy. So to what degree it's affected by, I guess, how much wind, it's really kind of hard to say, but to say it has no effect, I wouldn't say that. No.
Yeah. Well, and on the flip side, and anybody who's shot him, I got a great story. So this year I was turkey hunting, called the turkey in. I kind of do it where I go with no blind. I get, some leafy camo on public land, and I just go and call until I strike one up, and I hunker down, throw a decoy out if I have time. Right. So I did do that. It's this old logging road far out in the woods. It's lit. It's like almost a mile just out to get to it. It's kind of a cool spot that I found, and it's just like kind of magical to hunt turkeys there. But anyways, I'm all the way out there. I'm like, I strike up a gobble, and I have a berm almost in front of me, and I have my decoys out like on the other side. And my thought is maybe they're going to come in over. I'll be able to kind of just wait till they're fanned out, pop up, and take a shot. Well, they came out. You can hear them drumming. They're like 3 yards away from me on the other side of this berm. Awesome experience. I finally get up, and I'm like, okay, I'm ready. I see, I kind of get a clear shot. I'm holding back. I shoot. I put this video on our Instagram, and I hit it a little high, but it hit it funny in a way that the broadhead bounced off of a turkey. It opened up funny on its feathers, and it didn't draw blood at all. It took out a clump of feathers like the size of a softball. Like it just kind of ate them up, but it just, I don't know what happened. So I think I had it a funny angle. It was obviously not like the perfect shot. It was a weird situation, but I know if I would have had a fixed broadhead, like that does not happen because you don't have premature deployments. And this was, for everybody listening, this wasn't like a mega meat or anything. This was like a really wide, expandable broadhead that I just had. And I was like, I'm going to use it for turkey. It doesn't matter that much.
Yep.
And it made a huge difference. And eventually that bird took off, and it hobbled for a minute and was fine. So, on the flip side of maybe wind affects fixed broadheads more, you run into a less than perfect shot with with an expandable, or you shoot it in the shoulder, which is very common. It's a totally different ball game.
Yeah, that's a really interesting story. And to be honest with you, I probably would have chosen the biggest mechanical broadhead I could find for turkeys as well, right? I mean, I think there's a 3-inch cut mechanical out there, and turkeys aren't that dense of creatures, so the biggest hole you can make in them is probably what I would have chosen. So were you able to find that arrow and inspect it, by the way?
Yeah. It hit it and stopped, bounced off, right off of it. I'm shooting a 70. I think it stopped out at 73 pound.
Did it look like it had deployed, or you couldn't tell?
It deployed. It
really?
Yeah, it almost looked like I don't even know how to. It just ate up feathers.
Interesting.
I think I hit it a little high, so it was a different angle, so it kind of jacked it up. But I still hit it in the body.
Yeah.
It wasn't fanned out even.
You wouldn't think it mattered for turkeys that who knows what happened there, but I was killing deer when I was shooting mechanical broadheads, and I know people listening to this probably are too. And you don't want to wait for that experience that you had with that turkey to happen on, a PNY buck or something like that, right? But the potential is there. So for me, I want to try to eliminate any potential risk that is out there. And to me, a fixed blade cut on contact broadhead it is going to best do that for me, right?
Yeah.
Not only from less likely for failure, but these deer move.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, we can probably all sit in our backyards and stroke bullseyes from 20, 30, 40 yards, but they jump the string, and even if your shot is true and they move, you want to give yourself the best benefit of penetration. And fixed blades, in my opinion, do that.
Yeah, they'll definitely punch through. And that's why this year, and I, you know, just for total transparency for everybody listening, like Dave and I just met. There's not like a sponsor. This is no promotion thing. Like my broadheads right now are not razors, right? They're just ones I had. And I'll probably have some mechanicals in my quiver as well. But the idea is just to help you kind of understand and make an informed decision, because like I said, we see a lot of bad decisions, maybe picking some products. There are products out there that are not good. We won't obviously name some names, but there are some that are just not high quality. And so when you're thinking through what you put on the end of your arrow, like you said, Dave, it's one of the more important aspects of hunting. Like how do you become lethal with your shot? And so of course you mentioned earlier, there's price as a consideration, right? And price goes into, people will often say, well, mechanicals are cheaper. You know, I'm going to go that route, which is very true. Like oftentimes mechanicals are cheaper. The flip side of that is you can use fixed blades over and over again. In fact, you know, you were telling me when we met, you shot, what was it, 7 deer, something like that with that broadhead. So, which is cool, right? You reuse it. But the question I have for you then, Dave, is like, you're obviously not shooting 7 deer without sharpening and touching up and taking care of that broadhead. So, you know, coming into the season, maybe you got a quiver full of fixed broadheads from the past. Like, what are you doing to make sure your broadheads are ready to go?
Yeah. So let me touch about cost real quick too, because typically fixed blade broadheads are more expensive. If you're talking about razors in particular, right, they're $94.95. There's some others in our class that are well over 100. So if people are thinking that's expensive, there's definitely higher priced ones out there. But to your point, James, yeah, you can just keep on reusing them. So your initial upfront costs are going to be more, but then long term, because you can essentially reuse these and sharpen these back up, it's going to be cheaper, in the long run. But for me, obviously, if I harvest something with it, I'm going to obviously sharpen it. If it's during the season and it's sitting in my quiver, even oxidation can dull broadheads. So I think it's a good idea every couple of weeks just to give a simple strop to some of your broadheads and just keep them sharp.
You're just running that strop along it and just
you can even do it on you can actually do it. You can do it with leather, but you can actually just do it with denim.
Oh,
so you can do it with denim. So like I save all my old pairs of jeans, and if you just strap that back and forth on that a few times, it's incredible. Cardboard, denim, leather, it really doesn't matter.
Something a little softer to just kind of take that little, what's the little lip that gets on there?
Bevel?
Yeah.
Or the
not the bevel, the barb or whatever it is, like on the. Anyways.
The burr.
Yeah, the burr. That's what I'm trying to think of. Yeah.
Keep rolling that burr over. Yep.
So you're touching them up throughout the year. You're thinking about it. You're keeping them sharp. How do you know if it's sharp enough?
Get some paper out and try it, or I'll even do it with hair on my arm. Either one of those. Just make sure you're doing
drag
paper.
it.
Yeah. Yep. And with paper, really any broadhead can cut paper. Even a non-sharp broadhead's going to cut paper if you push on it hard enough, right? But you're kind of gauging off resistance, and you also want to make sure it's not like grabbing either. You want to make sure it's a clean slice. And if you did that with a dull versus a sharp broadhead, you would see the difference.
Like popping those hairs off pretty. Yeah.
Right. Yep.
So the other question we get a lot is, I would shoot, well, I'll frame it this way. A common thought about the difference between fixed and expandables is fixed or expandables, because they're so low profile, they shoot very similar to a field point. So people can go out, they can be shooting all summer long with their field points, feel pretty good, throw a, expandable on the end and kind of feel like for deer hunting, they should be good, right? Yeah. On the flip side, people will say, well, fixed blade are great. They have all these benefits and you can reuse them and all this great stuff, but fixed blades they shoot differently. You have to do something to them, and tuning fixed blades seems extremely scary to a lot of people. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I'm really glad you brought this up, because I think if people were honest with themselves, and I actually was one of these guys right before I started the company, is I was a little what's the word I'm looking for? Just kind of nervous about how that setup would go, right? Because tuning can take some time. And I was lazy, back in the day when I would literally just screw that mechanical on the night before. But here's what I'll say to those people that are considering doing this, that are nervous about it. It's really good to be in tune with your equipment, and you will gain so much confidence if you learn how to tune your bow a little bit. 90% of this can actually be done at your home without a bow press. Now, if your cams are out of time or something like that, you might need to go to your local archery shop and have them put a twist or take a twist out of your string to correct that. But based on how your arrow is tearing through paper, a lot of those adjustments can be done with an Allen wrench with adjusting your rest.
Yeah.
And then once that's done, they should fly, I would say, out to about 30 yards, identically to your field depths. Now, past 30, I will tell you, even mine, they will start hitting a little low. But again, that goes back to there's a little more surface area with fixed blade broadhead versus mechanical. So to say they don't fly good is not true. Can they fly different than field points? Yes, especially at longer distance. But that doesn't mean they're not flying good. It's just a little extra resistance because of that surface area.
Yeah, right. So basically you're saying more often than not, they just drop faster.
Yes,
right?
Correct. But I would say everyone's different, but mine in particular, out to 30, it's right on. And I won't shoot a deer past 30 anyway.
Right.
That's just my sweet spot. Yeah. So I don't know if that answers your question, but here's what I'll say about bows that are out of tune. All right. And I would encourage people, even with mechanicals, to do this, obviously, right? But when it comes to fixed blade broadheads, I would say that an out of tune bow, it would just magnify it all the more than it would a mechanical.
Yeah.
That'd be the main difference.
Yeah, absolutely. And like tune is easy to fix, but it can create problems. I've told you and on the podcast a bunch of issues I had with a bow tune out in Alaska,
Yep.
But you can oftentimes see guys, if you're sitting behind somebody who's got an out of tune bow and you watch the flight of the arrow and it's sideways, half the way down or whatever, it's obvious to see. And so tune, I mean, like you said, tune will affect broadhead, whatever broadhead you shoot, or you throw wind in, it doesn't correct as fast and it will go way off. Hugely important. And also I'll say, like, yes, often mechanicals will fly similar to field points or maybe a little bit closer, but they still will fly differently. And so what I like to do is, for example, I was talking about mega meats. Mega meats are like my go-to field broadhead, expandable broadhead. Like, I love them. They've been tried and true. I've never had any issues with those. What they come with is a practice tip that's like basically their broadhead, but it's like a mold of it or whatever. So it doesn't deploy. It goes right into the target. It comes out. I shoot them into block targets, bag targets, whatever. Works great. So all that to say is, just because maybe a company markets itself as shooting similar, like the same as field points, that doesn't mean they actually do. So just a plug to, like you said, know your stuff, know what you're using, get comfortable with it. The more you can know what you have, just the better things will go, the better the experience is, the more lethal you'll be, the more ethical. Honestly, you can't, like, it's just not ethical to go out there not spent time, working on your stuff, getting to know. Honestly, when you called me prior to this podcast, I was shooting my bow down the road. I was on the phone trying to quick get a few shots. I got done with work. I'm like trying to get a new hunt kind of going that's coming up here in a couple of weeks, and I'm like, I got to get some shots in. So I'm trying to shoot, talking the phone, and then get to you. But all of it's like, all that to say, it's just like, I want to spend time a couple times a week at least, just with my bow, getting to know my setup. For us, Jared, Joe, and I, we're getting new or trying new things every year, which is cool. But that also means we have to spend like a lot of time. You can't rely on last year's, experience when you have a new bow or new arrows, or, you've changed something up, which we tend to do every single year. So get to know your stuff.
It's so true though, James. You talked about that arrow flight. You can actually see it with the naked eye when you're shooting it. And if you can't, have a buddy stand behind you and actually watch, because, even at 300 feet per second, you can see those wobbles. And here's the other thing I'll say, and we've all had this before too, right? You actually hit the bullseye in the target, but your arrow is wonky. It's like it's off to the side.
Yes.
So you hit your bullseye and you think you're good, but that's not a tuned bow.
No,
that knock should be right behind the tip.
Exactly. Exactly.
You're hitting the target.
Otherwise, you lose so much momentum, so much force that you cut out half the power sometimes when you hit it sideways. And you're right. Like you can easily. When I shot recurve for a while, I got used to shooting with both eyes open, and I picked up a lot of bad habits actually coming back from recurve to compound bow. Like my bow hand I have a hard time. I held it different before, and now I got to switch it back. But one of the great things I learned was to shoot with both eyes open. And when you do that, you can see your arrow way better. Like I try sometimes to close my eye if I have a hard time seeing the pin or light's weird. And then I shoot. And because I'm not looking, and my shots are usually not good, because I just have found if I watch the arrow go into the target with both eyes, first of all, you get to experience the beauty of arrow flight, which if you've never just done that, it's very addictive. But also it's like you can get a great sense of how your arrow flies real easy.
Yep. I experimented that one year, and I don't know if I wasn't very good at it or didn't give long enough try, but I would like to get to that point, because I know even at dusk, looking through your peep, that is an advantage.
Yes.
With two eyes.
Yeah. It took me a while, because essentially you kind of see two. And so your brain has to get used to like which one to not pay attention to. And after a while, that one like almost shuts off and you only see one pin for whatever reason. I don't know how that works.
Yep. No.
So your 2-year-old company, you're kind of joining, an interesting market, right? There's a lot of innovation, a lot of change. Forever it was fixed blade, then the introduction of expandables and like rage in the cage type stuff, and now there's almost a push back to fixed, and there's a lot of different things coming up, bleeders and hybrid broadheads, and lots of innovations and trends. And so like what are you seeing in the industry like as a whole of like broadheads? Like what's happening right now? How does that affect the consumer? Like how should they look at that?
Yeah, no, it's a great question, because those of us that have been hunting for a long time and been part of the industry, even from afar, you can see there's evolutions and there's different pendulum swings and things are popular. I don't know how old you are, James, but did you ever have the overrest when that was popular, the overdraw, where they have these really short?
I never did. I knew of it, but I was like 12, so that didn't even really apply to me at that point.
So those were real popular for a while, and then it was like speed. Everything was all about speed. Well, then I think people were starting to learn that they weren't getting penetration from the speed. Yeah. So now it seems like, I would say, these last 5 years or so ish, and we'll see where it goes from here. But there's definitely been a push towards heavier setups and more penetration. I ain't gonna lie, those 300 feet per second or 320 or whatever arrows at the range, they look pretty cool going down there. I'm pretty jealous of those guys. But it doesn't necessarily makes them more lethal.
Yeah.
And so when you're looking at razors in particular, I mean, we have a 150, a 200, and a 250 grain option. For a lot of people, those are heavy broadheads. Yeah. But I'll also tell you, whether it's ours or a different brand, it really doesn't matter. They hit like trucks.
Yeah.
And they're going to put deer down.
I've kind of found, I feel like human nature is to swing far one way and far another, right? The pendulum goes back and forth. I found, there's benefits to both. Like the benefit of the speed is that your pin, first of all, your pins are tight, which is sweet because it's just easy. Secondly, it'd be like my 30-yard pin would work for my 20-yard for 20 yards when I'm shooting a faster bow. And like, sometimes like you would beyond that, like it's really, you don't have to move much, there's a lot less room for error and it just is out to the deer quickly. But to your point, and a very good point, it's like you throw some momentum with the right FOC, which everybody listening, that's FOC is force on contact.
Forward of center.
For front of center. Duh. Yeah. Front of center is basically like you take an arrow, you can run your finger along it, see where it balances and how much weight is front of the center. And so all that kind of, you know what, if you really want to know more, we've done a bunch of podcasts on them with method arrows. We did one with Ranch Fairy. Like you can go for those who are listening and check it out. But all that's important. I feel like a good mix of like a good heavy arrow, but also one that's got a little bit of speed to get there. That's quiet. I think a heavier arrow to me seems quieter, which is nice. is what I like. And honestly, the other thing that I never was a fan of, and some people are, and I can see why, are the vented broadheads. Some people like them. I have a few in my quiver. I don't like them as much. I feel like they whistle a little bit, and that just bothers me a little bit. So,
and they're also going to take up energy as they're going through the animal too, because those vents are going to, meat's going to get stuck in there and stuff like that. So I think it limits your penetration.
Yeah.
Can I go back to one thing on the speed real quick?
Yeah, of course.
I don't know how great analogy it is, but it's just one I've thought of and one I've used on some other podcasts that I've been on. But I don't know if you like watching the UFC or boxing, but a lot of the lightweights, right? The shorter lightweight guys, they are fast as lightning with their hand speed. Boom, 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 boom.
Yeah,
but they rarely knock each other out, right? They usually goes the distance, and it's going to be a decision on who the judges' scorecards go to. Those heavyweights, they ain't punching real fast, but there's a lot of weight behind what they're throwing. And if those guys breathe on you, you're going down. And I kind of think that correlates to arrows, to broadheads. Absolutely. Right? It's kind of the same analogy.
Yeah, you just have more power behind it. When I was growing up, my dad would tell me about this fight he had seen between, I think they got a sumo wrestler and like a karate guy. And like he's like fast and everything doing it. And finally, like the sumo guy gets him like once and he's like done.
Right.
So that's kind of how it works when I fight Jared. Except I'm both speed and I'm power.
Is that what he would say?
He wouldn't, but he's not a mean fighter. The thing with Jared is he's always too nice. Now Joe, on the other hand, I don't think I'd fight Joe. I think he's both mean. He's just mean. I wouldn't mess with him. So, I mean, like I said, this is just wanted to kind of recap. I realized in the past we've kind of brushed over some broadhead topics, and like you said at the beginning of the podcast, Dave, it's like this is the part that literally enters the animal. It is the part of the whole equation that actually does the killing, right? So it should take a lot of thought. It should take a lot of consideration to pick the right one. There are a lot of great options out there, and a lot of great options, honestly, in both categories. Like I said from the very beginning, I shoot both. I have both, and I will be shooting both this year. And actually, I'll probably grab a different arrow depending on the situation, which maybe some people wouldn't love, but it's just what I do. And so you take the time, like go get some broadheads. It's sometimes expensive, but shoot them, practice with them. That was always my fear forever. I'd be like, you spend $90 on a broadheads and like you first go out and man, if you're struggling with target panic going in and then you're freaking out about shooting your new broadheads into the dirt, it's only going to get worse. And it for sure did for me. Right. But do it, like get out there, figure out a way to take that away, get a giant target, whatever it is, and start practicing.
Yeah. I promised you before when we were setting this up, I didn't want to make this a Razor commercial, and hopefully I've fulfilled my commitment.
You did good. Yeah.
Just for your listeners, I think just pondering some of these questions, are good. We've got about 6 weeks before this season opens up here in Michigan, at least, right? Yep. So there's still time to tinker with some of these and answer some of these questions, even in your own mind, experiment with a few different things, and really make the decision that you think is best for you, in your setup.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and we'll give opinions all day long, and I'm fine with it. And actually, I was messing around with these Razor broadheads, and they are awesome. Like they're so sharp. They come in that little, like you take the gummy wrapper thing off, and like I was popping hairs right off as we had coffee right down the road here. So that was cool.
Yeah. And the other thing I'll say too is I think a fixed blade broadhead, and again, doesn't matter which one it is. If you look at kinetic energy, right? Everyone always trying to measure kinetic energy. And it's very simple. You look at speed and what the weight is, and there's a formula to figure that out, right? But that's at impact. So if you take a mechanical and a fixed that weigh the same weight and they're traveling same speed, theoretically, they're going to have the exact same kinetic energy at impact. Mm-hmm. I do not believe that energy from a fixed blade carries through as it's going to the deer like a fixed blade does, because when those blades deploy at impact, there's energy loss there. That energy has to go somewhere, whereas the fixed blade is going to carry it through as it passes through. So kinetic energy can be a little deceiving when you're measuring different types of broadheads.
Right, because it's like kinetic energy win.
Correct.
And as most hunters know, like a great entry hole is you love it. But to me, I'd rather have a fantastic exit, right? Because that's where the blood comes out. And if you've ever shot a deer and it didn't go through, it can be hairy. You know, I've switched broadheads after shooting a deer and having it only go part way through. And it was one I'd shot forever. And it was like, that's enough. I'm not ever doing that again. Because you find just drops of blood and it might be bleeding all out in the cavity,
internal. Yep.
You don't have an exit. I mean, the exit to me is probably more important than the entrance hole.
Yep. I agree.
Well, we're coming up on time here, but I appreciate taking the time to do this, Dave. And I know you said you didn't want to make this a commercial for Razor, but like, where can people check it out? I mean, you guys have cool stuff. Like I said, I held the broadheads. I can say for everybody, and like, he's not a sponsor. He's not paying me under the table to say this. Like, they're good stuff. But for people that want to check it out themselves, where can they go?
Yep. So you can check us out. RazorBroadheads.com is the website. Razor Broadheads on Instagram. If you want to send us an email and reach out to us, we communicate with customers on a daily basis. That's at info@RazorBroadheads.com. We're locally based for your Michigan listeners, which I'm sure a lot of us are right here in Grand Rapids, Michigan. We're 100% American made, and we're very proud of that. But yeah, feel free to reach out to us. We're happy to communicate with the hunting community.
Cool. Well, thanks for coming on, everybody. Check us out next week. We're starting to wrap up this series. Every once in a while, I've changed some of the things as we've gone, topics and stuff that have come up or that I really wanted to talk about. So next week should be scouting, but you never know if I come up with another idea between now and then. So just roll with the punches. It'll be all right. Thanks for listening. We'll talk to y'all soon.